Welcome, Gunrunner.
In 1982, Philips and Sony changed the way we listen to music forever, with the invention of the compact disc. Of course, it wasn't long before they started to explore other possibilities for this media, such as video CD, photo CD, and of course, data storage. This would lead to a further collaboration between the two companies as they explored the possibilities of creating a CD-based multimedia machine, which would be the very first of its kind on the market. They christened this the Compact Disc Interactive, or CDI for short, with development starting in 1984 and the first previews of the system arriving late in 1986. Whilst the Japanese company got cold feet fairly early on and took a back seat on the project, the Dutch electronics giant ploughed ahead with development, and finally, after years of delays and various technical issues, the first model of the Philips CDI was finally shown to the world in 1991. Although playing games was never the primary function of the CDI, it was very much marketed as a multimedia device. A large range of different titles were released for the machine, including iconic classics such as Lemmings, Micro Machines, Flashback, Tetris and Dragon's Lair. Indeed, the emergence of such games inspired Philips to create the CDI 450, a new version of the system that was very much designed and marketed as a console. Although many of the CDI's best original titles like Mystic Midway, Voyeur and Burn Cycle were also converted over to the PC, there is still a nice selection of titles that remain exclusive to the CDI, and that's what we're going to be looking at here.
Philips invents the compact disc, and music enters the digital age. Now Philips invents the compact disc interactive, and the digital age comes to video entertainment with interactive games, information, entertainment and films. All with pure digital sound and stunning video images. Philips invents CDI, the ultimate machine for compact discs and amazing pictures. Philips invents for you.
Before playing Atlantis The Last Resort, I'm not sure I would have believed that the CDI could have done a first-person shooter of this quality, but after playing it I was left thinking wow. In fact, the story goes that the game's programmer only created Atlantis because he was told there was no way that the limited CDI hardware could manage a game of this type. When Philips Interactive saw the fruit of his labour, even they couldn't believe it. It's very similar to id Software's ever popular Wolfenstein 3D in many ways, with comparable graphics that do get quite blocky close up, but because they move so fast and smoothly, this can be forgiven pretty easily. There are some very nice and rather amusing cutscenes in full motion video, and well designed enemies too. Everything about this game is really well done in fact. Another great feature of Atlantis is the sound. You can either listen to the great game music, or even put your own CD into the console and listen to your own tunes while you play. A great feature that they definitely should have used in more CDI games. Overall, I have to say that Atlantis The Last Resort is easily one of the best CDI games on a technical level, and also one of the best I've played too. If you own a CDI, then you really should have this game in your collection. If anyone watching this remembers the excellent Evander Holyfield Real Deal Boxing for the Sega Mega Drive, or Genesis to you Americans, then you will have a great idea of what playing this game is all about. This is because Caesar's World of Boxing is almost identical to Real Deal, albeit with a smattering of full motion video thrown in to add to the experience. You must start off the game by creating your own boxer, then you have to go out and hire both a promoter and a trainer too. You can set up your boxer in any way you like to focus on speed, power or technique depending on your personal preference, and then improve all of your boxer's stats working out in the gym. Once you pick an opponent to face and get into the fight, you'll just see the top halves of your boxers and can move either left or right across the screen. You can perform an array of different punches and blocks, and must also watch your energy bar to make sure you don't get knocked out. The graphics are excellent throughout the game with realistic looking boxers and great cutscenes. The sound is likewise, and the full motion video, whilst really cheesy, really adds to the game, for once. My only reservation about this game is that it does cramp up your hand after a few fights with all the button bashing. Nonetheless, this is a pretty solid product for the CDI, and one that should be top of any owner's want list.
Round 2.
The first CDI game to star Mario, and the first game released from Philips' deal with Nintendo that also brought us 3 much maligned Zelda games too, this fun little game owes far more to the original Mario Bros. Arcade game than it does to the much later Super title from the Nintendo Entertainment System. The idea of this game is pretty simple really, to make your way around each single screen level trying to close all the doors. You do this by using a series of lifts, some of which just go up and some of which just go down, to get to the appropriate platform so you can grab your bounty. You must also avoid the nasty Koopas who are not only out to stop you, as always, but will reopen doors that you have closed. Also, be warned, because they can use the lifts to their own advantage too. Much like other Mario games, you can also collect golden coins for bonus points. One trick you can utilise though to escape them is hiding in the doors until they walk past. There is no jumping on their heads like other Mario games. The graphics in Hotel Mario are really nice and fit in well with the quality of other games in the long running series. The sound is very much likewise, and the gameplay is absolutely spot on too. So, lots of fun and pretty good all round really, sums up Hotel Mario perfectly. Don't believe all the bad press on this one, you can do much worse than pick up this incredibly fun title. Infogrames' rather weird but strangely enjoyable Kether is often compared to another similar French CDI game called Inca, but that one, unlike this, isn't a CDI exclusive so doesn't make it to this video. Like Cocktail Vision's game, this is a series of mini-games loosely tied together by a sci-fi inspired plot, but this time it's a far more traditional story rather than the South Americans in space yarn of Inca. The game is basically split up into 3 distinctly different game styles, spread across 5 different worlds. The first of these are the flying sections. In these you fly a craft around some stunning pre-rendered backdrops, avoiding the enemies and collecting objects. The second group of stages takes the form of more traditional puzzle games, where you're mostly just matching up symbols. These are rather easy and quite simple, although present an interesting diversion. The final set of levels open up like a Doom style FPS, with you running down corridors shooting enemies and trying to find the exit. These look pretty great, despite only using a small section of the screen, but do get a little repetitive and monotonous after a while. As a whole package, Kether is quite mixed. It's certainly impressive from a technical point of view, and even more so when you realise no digital video card is required, but not all the parts of it work quite as well as perhaps they should. Still, it's worth buying Kether just for those flying sections alone.
Emperor of Light will speak.
One of the games I was most looking forward to playing when I first bought a CDI is Philips' very own answer to Sega's classic beat-em-up Streets of Rage, and I can definitely say it's a fine effort at that. In Mutant Rampage Body Slam you must choose one of 3 human characters and set off around the world fighting against the mutants in question. It's your usual fare with 3 player types, one is really strong but slow, one is fast but weak, and one is good all round. But where this game differs massively from other beat-em-ups is that during the levels you come across tag points that allow you to switch between these 3 characters. Also, each of them have their own health bars and lives too, which means you can swap between them once you are nearly dead. Each of these fighters also has their own special moves, and I have also found that each character's finishers work better against some bosses than others, so you need to learn each one. Another nice feature is the ability to save the game, so you can come back to it at a later date, as long as your battery on the CDI is not dead, that is. The graphics are very nice indeed, and it's unusual to see arcade style visuals such as this on the CDI. The sound is likewise, and best of all it plays pretty good too. I've always been a sucker for scrolling beat-em-ups, and I have to say that I really enjoyed this game. Even the FMV sequences aren't too annoying here. After first hearing about Steel Machine and how it was a clone of the famous 8-bit computer game Uridium by Hewson, I was very eager to get my hands on it. I certainly wasn't disappointed when I finally did, but I found that it actually reminded me more of another game, Firebird's brilliant return to Genesis for the Atari ST. It certainly seems to take some inspiration from both titles, but for those who haven't played either, I'd better explain more. Steel Machine is a horizontally scrolling shooter that is viewed from above like a vertically scrolling one. The idea is to fly over the titular Steel Machine, taking out the gun turrets and drone ships that it releases. By destroying an attack wave you get a nice little power up, and this can range from new guns to extra shields and extra lives. Once you're over the giant ship you're also able to move left and right to take out any bits you might have missed. A handy scanner is also there to show you where the trouble is manifesting, just like the arcade classic Defender. The graphics are pretty nice, but what really stands out here is the fantastic soundtrack, simply the best I've heard on the CDI in fact. I do warn you that this game is pretty tough, but you will go back for another go and you will beat that high score again, if only by a few points. This is definitely a CDI essential, and one of the top 5 games I've played for the console, a real quality product. This extremely rare game for the CDI was only released in the Netherlands, and while it may sound like a beat 'em up, it's actually a vertically scrolling shooter. The best way I can describe this game is Galaga with fancy backgrounds and power-ups. There are two modes of play in Tetsuya Gaiden, Classic and Future. The Classic mode looks more like Namco's Galaga with a scrolling star-filled backdrop and simple sprites, all very 8-bit in style, whilst the Future mode uses the same sprites but puts them over a wonderfully rendered backdrop that is animated and also scrolls past you too. These visuals kind of reminded me of a cross between Crescent Galaxy on the Jaguar and Ikaruga on the Dreamcast, and I must say they look jaw-dropping. They do slightly confuse matters though when you see a rendered flying saucer fly past that you can't actually shoot at. The power-ups are your usual fare with speed-ups, faster shots, extra guns, etc, and when you die you lose them completely. The alien patterns get faster and more dangerous as the levels go on, and real skill is needed to avoid them as they come dive bombing towards you. On the sound side it's a strange mix. The effects are very Gallagher-esque with classic 8-bit bleeps and bloops. The music, however, consists of a great rock-style CD soundtrack that makes it all sound quite strange really. I personally really liked this game, and with some slightly better power-ups and bosses this could have been a true CDI classic, but as it stands, it's still well worth picking up.
Score increase. Get ready.
The Apprentice was one of the very first CDI games I ever played back when I worked at Game. So when I picked it up again in the present day, I was pleased to find out that it was every bit as good as I remember. This is not just the best platformer on the CDI, but also one of its finest games full stop. Developer The Vision Factory were definitely top of the pile when it came to making great games for the platform. The Apprentice is unusual in that it's a vertically scrolling platform game, much like Taito's classic Rainbow Islands, but with a few more extra elements thrown in. The screen always scrolls upwards, and you must collect coins, magic potions, power-ups and avoid the enemies. There are also other hazards such as slime and fire that can kill you too. Some levels require you to get keys to open doors along the way, and these are always hidden in hard to reach places. Precision platform jumping is the order of the day here. The graphics look beautiful with wonderfully well drawn backgrounds, well animated sprites and great intro screens too. The audio is also spot on with superb music and a host of great sound effects. What often lets platformers down is bad controls and poor collision detection, but there's none of that here as the gameplay is hard to fault too. The Apprentice is without doubt an essential game for the much maligned CDI. It's just a shame that the much publicised sequel never made it out the door, as I'm sure it would have been even better still. Following straight on from the previous Zelda game for the CDI, Link, The Faces of Evil, the Wand of Gamelon is a particularly noteworthy game in the famous franchise for one simple reason: it stars Zelda as the protagonist rather than Link. In the game you are sent on a quest to find both Link and your father, the king, who never returned home after the first CDI adventure. The gameplay here is almost identical to The Faces of Evil, taking the form of an arcade adventure rather than a traditional RPG that you would expect to see in the Nintendo produced games. So you can walk, fire arrows, jump, climb and duck in order to get around the various levels and beat the enemies. You can also pick up rubies which can be traded at shops for a variety of other useful items, and make your way around the vast map in any way that you choose. Again, like the previous title, the story here is explained via a series of very cheesy animation clips that look very much like a cartoon and feature some pretty hilarious voice acting. It seems that this is what has got the game the reputation it has, rather than the actual gameplay, which again is far better than people seem to give it credit for. As before, the controls could have been a bit more intuitive, and you really do have to be pixel perfect with some of your movements, but it's nothing you can't get used to. Don't let the poor reputation put you off playing Wand of Gamelon. It's honestly better than you'd think. Released very late in the CDI's life, Zenith is a hugely original game that you should ignore at your peril. I suppose, in some ways, you could compare it with titles like Marble Madness, Jinx and Bounder. It certainly borrows small features from each one, but is very much its own product. The basic premise of the game is to bounce a ball from the start of each vertically scrolling course to the end. This course is made up of platforms that all sit at different heights, so you need to bounce higher to get over some of these and control the direction of the bounce to land correctly too. This is because the platforms also contain holes your balls can fall down, acid that dissolves it instantly, and other similar hazards. That's not all though, your ball has limited durability, so you must try to get to the end of the level before it's too badly damaged. Thankfully you can pick up fuel, why they call it this I don't know, that restores the durability of the ball throughout each level. There are also handy teleports you can jump into that fast forward you through the stage, saving you time, and speaking of time, this is certainly a game where you would expect a tight time limit right. Or you don't actually have one, there is actually no benefit in completing the levels really quickly. Slow and steady is the order of the day in Zenith. With its great 3D effect and compulsive gameplay, Zenith is a real hidden gem in the CDI library.
Say you're watching TV and this guy says...
It's CDI, friends, the next generation CD player that works with your TV.
And you'd say...
But I have a CD player.
Then your mom says...
No, dear. CDI works with your television.
You'd probably feel pretty dumb and maybe even fake it like you'd already experienced the ultimate in games, movies, music, and more.
Trust me, babe, I know about this CDI stuff.
Now get into CDI, starting at $2.99 with $200 of free software.
And that rounds up my look at 10 amazing exclusives for the Philips CDI. Can you think of any other exclusives for this quirky multimedia system that should have made the list? Or do you think some of these games are unworthy of inclusion? I always love to hear the thoughts and views of my audience, so please get typing in that comment section. Before I go though, I must thank all of my loyal patrons to continue to support my channel and make videos like this possible. However, I must give special thanks to following patrons in particular for their much appreciated pledges. Mitchell Valentino, Neptune, Seth A. Robinson, Carl Olsen, Ozzy B, D. Vaughan, DOS Gamerman and Electron Star Collapse. If you also want to help support all my creative endeavours, including this YouTube channel, then please go and check out my Patreon right now. You can get access to hosts for extra content, including downloads, exclusive videos, creative insights and much more besides. I've been the Laird, I thank you for watching and I'll see you all again for another video very soon.